Hi, I'm Alex Smerznak. Thanks for listening to the very first episode of How I Franchise This. On this show, we tell the stories of everyday people who left traditional careers: finance, education, sales, engineering, the list goes on. But they took the leap into business ownership through franchising. It's not always easy, but for a lot of people, it's the most rewarding move they've ever made. If you're thinking about making that jump yourself, Franzi can help you find the right franchise and walk you through the process. Just head to franzi.com to get started. On today's episode, I'm joined by Samantha and Jeff Gossett, a husband and wife team who left behind jobs in personal training and corporate sales to open a KidStrong franchise in Maryland. We talk about how one Instagram ad changed their lives, what it's like building a business together, and what they wish more people knew about taking this leap. Let's get into it. Well, very light, easy T-ball question to get started. If you guys don't mind, sharing your kind of names, where you're from, and then a little bit about the brand that you decided to franchise in and what you guys do.
My name is Samantha. The brand that we're in is KidStrong. We opened our location in August of 2024. And yeah, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm Jeff Gossett. I'm from Texas and Florida, and I've been in Maryland for about 12 years. And we picked KidStrong because it's a franchise that really strikes a chord with us, being parents of a 5 and 3 year old active child. So yeah,
And
now
what is,
yeah.
for those that don't know what KidStrong is, what does KidStrong do? Like, what's the, like, if you were to describe it to like a friend or a neighbor, what would you say that KidStrong does?
Yeah, so KidStrong's a training program for kids, and it helps empower them to be strong and confident, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally. We build up their character through our 45-minute classes. So they come in and they are moving their body 45 minutes, mostly they're pretty active. And then, we also pull from some character traits, some social skills just to build up their confidence and self-esteem.
And just so you know, I'm gonna have you guys do the mantra at the end because I
Oh, so
our
we did.
my previous company was a
We do
system.
it almost every day.
I
Not a
know
big.
about it. I know about it. It's one of my favorite things. So because my previous business, I am a franchisor still of a laundromat concept, and KidStrong is a portfolio or sister company of ours. So we share the same investors actually. And so I remember seeing the founders at a conference doing it on stage, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's so awesome and empowering. And so I
It's
might
new to
put you guys
market,
on.
right? Like there's nothing like it. And that was one of the biggest reasons why we jumped on board because, it's a family business. Like this is my full-time job now. It's her full-time job. So we fully believe in the brand and we think that we're, pretty decent ambassadors of the brand. And, that's one of the things too for like new potential franchise owners, invest into something you believe in. Because when you believe in it, it makes it that much easier. Doing the behind the scene work, the hiring, the turnover, all the issues. But if you believe in it and you're passionate in it, I think there's something to be said for that because it's just gonna make you feel that much more personally invested into it and not just look at it from a numbers standpoint.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think we'll get into like what's the passion behind it, the brand and how you found it. But I think the audience would really want to hear about, what were you guys doing before franchising, before this even became an idea?
Yeah.
What was your life like and career like before KidStrong?
Yeah, so I had about a 11-year career in the optical sales world, and I had a really awesome job before I jumped on board with KidStrong. But the career I had kind of paved um, uh, the financial way for us to be able to invest in a KidStrong. So I had a really cool job, and I know a ton about eyeglasses and lenses and labs. That would be very boring. Um, but I don't miss the travel. I covered half of the eastern U.S. And now my commute's 15 minutes, and I'm a professional fist bumper and door guy to welcome in families. And right now I like this job better. So
I love that.
And
The
then
15-minute commute is very underrated.
oh my
It's
God,
some
yeah.
like I
I was
used to
like,
drive like 40 minutes and then I got a taste of what 10 to 15 is like. I was like, this is a game changer. I'm never doing anything beyond this again.
I used to be stuck on 495, which is going into like Northern Virginia, DC, and I'd be on there for like 2.5 hours, and it's like you're not a happy person when you 40 miles takes 2.5 hours. It's not fun. So
No. And Samantha, what about you? What were you doing before you guys decided to go in on KidStrong?
yeah, so KidStrong is kind of my two careers coming together. So I was a elementary school teacher in Baltimore for 9 years. And the city got me. I loved, kids. I loved working with kids. I have such a passion for that, but schools are schools and they're really hard to be in as a educator. So I left that and then I went into personal training. So I was a trainer and a manager of a gym for about 5 years. And was, working for someone else, building out their dream, and was ready to make a jump for my own.
That is such a perfect intersection of what you guys, I mean, like you couldn't, draw it up any
couldn't
more
tee it up
of,
better. You
I
really couldn't.
know.
So
What a,
yeah.
is
Yeah.
that how KidStrong came to be? Is that how you found that brand was because of your background and you were looking for things that resonated, or was it just by happenstance and
I'll
coincidence?
answer
I'm
this
gonna
for her.
say
Yeah.
no. He's gonna say
Yeah.
yes.
Well, so like, long story short, I was the one that was, making the more, household income. But I saw what she brought to the table, and I was like, I work a fraction of what she does weekly, uh, and I'm, Xing 5 times the amount she is. She's working, 70 hours a week building out someone else's dream. I was like, I know I got the work ethic in her, in my partner. Um, so yes, that background made me more open-minded to be like, yes, let's look into this. Because, one of the questions people always ask is, how did you guys do this? And I always say, I just kept not saying no. I never shut it down at any point. Hey, can we have this call? Sure. Can we go to Texas? Sure. Can we go to Discovery Day? Sure. Financially, can we pull this out? Sure. You know? So like I just never said no. But me being able to see what her work capacity was, like I obviously we've been together 12 years. I saw her in the classroom. I saw what she brought every day. I saw her build someone else's, brand and dream. So I knew what she could do not only at the gym but outside the gym. And I was like, this is a no-brainer. So
And so was it that sparked you guys wanting to seriously start thinking about business ownership? Forget franchising even, but just business ownership in general because you saw like, hey, we'd make a great team. We both have the work ethic. Why don't we do this for ourselves? Or what really led the
yeah,
serious search to start happening?
I think he said it a bunch of times, but I was so consumed with someone else's business and, someone else's dream and someone else's income. And I was putting in so much effort that I was like, why can't it just be me? Why can't it just be us? Like, why do we need, um, why do I need to be underneath someone and doing everything that, they love, they want for their family? Why can't we just do it for ours? Um, and that was kind of what sparked like okay, what's next for us? And I think the thing is that, when we started this journey, Jeff and I were still, young, for
yeah,
lack
we
of a
still
better
are.
term. Yeah, we're still like, we were like young and, there was so much time, there's so much time for us to build something and to, go after a new dream. I would have never, ever, ever, I was, an educator. So money and all of that stuff is just like not what I'm driven by. But it was like, why not? Why not now? When we still have the energy and the motivation and the drive to do it, why not?
So I guess my next question off of that is, what drew you to franchising instead of doing something completely from scratch? Was there a reason it was one over the other, or was it kind of just, hey, we're going to see what brand jumps out and resonates with us the most?
I'm
I think our answers are opposite all the time.
I, all right.
I would say yes, because it is intimidating. Starting a business is intimidating. Like you don't know what you're doing. You learn as you go. And I think that what drew us to franchising, I mean, you always hear all these stories that like franchising is so scary. They like take over your life and, they consume you and you owe them a ton of money. And so I think that's where I was scared with a franchise, but then it was also like the benefits of what you get and the help that they give you, kind of outweighs that. And we obviously knew nothing about franchising, um this is our first, so we were learning a lot about it in general, as we were going and exploring, but we did, KidStrong was the only one that we explored because it just resonated with us the most.
And I said no because we weren't looking to franchise or open up our own business. My job was really successful, and we were just trying to figure out Samantha's next step. And then we got a targeted ad on Instagram for KidStrong, and then I was like, "Holy cow! Like this is like literally your wheelhouse. Maybe we should look into this because, And then my brain reverted into like, okay, this is got my attention because this is something that is not only family oriented, but it's both like her best world, both worlds combined. So that opened my eyes, and I was like, okay, we can't. I mean, they have the playbook. Let's go run it instead of let's take up more time and try to carve something out ourselves. So there wasn't much thought into like a business or any other franchise. It's just we KidStrong targeted us, and it's a pretty lucrative ROI on there.
I mean, you answered one of the questions too. I was like, how do you know, when it was the right fit? But this is such a unique, and I'd be curious if you guys agree with that. Like, it's such a unique story that you guys have. Like, the fit is
Yeah.
almost perfect, right? And I've met a number of franchisees and business owners where some are just purely financially motivated. They don't care what it is. It could be a kid's restaurant, it could be an ice cream shop, it could be a gutter cleaning thing. They don't care. It's just about, a business that has good returns. And then I meet the group that passion and something that I'm fulfilled by and excited by every day has to be a big part of it. And then you meet the combination of of the two, and it sounds like for you, combination of the two for sure. But number two jumped out the most of like this is just such a good fit that the ad resonated, the mission resonated, and caught you guys at the right time where it was like we want to go do our own thing. Is that fair?
That's very fair. It was we were literally 2 years ago, almost to this weekend. We were on vacation, and it was just like, you got to leave your job. You're not happy, and we had just finished. I think a couple weeks prior, we did our day or our weekend with KidStrong to like we kind of see if it's a good fit, and then we gave her boss a counter for a raise. He said can't do it. And then we said we're all in on KidStrong. So yeah, that's like about 24 months ago, almost to the day. Um, and it was my driver was her unhappiness. Honestly, it wasn't even a financial thing. But you can see that you can support a family and do well financially as well. Since this is both of our full time job. By no means is it easy, but we're making it work and we're growing it. Because of the passion that we both have for what KidStrong delivers as a message.
Yeah, I want to say, I mean, hats off to you guys. I can't tell you how many people I meet that, oh, I'm struggling here. I'm not happy with my job here. What should I do? And you give them, I think, good advice, and this is how I would go approach it. And they just get stuck, right? It's scary because you're making this huge
Yeah,
change,
I
and
mean,
good for you guys
we were
for doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
we're
you look at things and it's like, we we would say to each other, because we had two little kids at the time, and it was like, if we're not going to do it, like someone else is going to pick up a KidStrong and they're going to build it, down the block, and we're going to be like, that could have been us. That could have been us. Why can't it be us? And so, I mean, the conversations, it wasn't like, oh, this is perfect and everything's just going to fall into place. Like we had really tough conversations with each other, but it felt like it was our time to make it happen. And I didn't want to drive down the road, 2 years from now, like today, and see a KidStrong and be like, wait, we explored this whole thing and it could have been, we could have done that. We discussed it. Because that could have happened too.
And that's how powerful I'll say the KidStrong brand is. That, it wasn't fear, but it was just like, we don't have any more, like, you make your pro and con list when you're looking into franchising, and, the pros definitely outweighed the cons. But the biggest kind of in the middle is just like that. If we don't do it, who else will be that next guy? And like
FOMO.
Yeah, like the FOMO. Because that is how powerful the KidStrong brand is, and I believe that. And what we see in like that, what goes on here on a daily and weekly basis, and meeting those families and the kids, and hey, Coach Jeff, good to see you, man. And I know Mark's going to be here, Monday night tonight, and I'll give him and his family fist bumps, and it's cool. And that's the kind of stuff that doesn't show up on a P&L. I've had a lot of conversations with people interested in KidStrong and franchising, and I said, you got to realize that you're going to put a lot of sweat equity and time into this. So if you're not enjoying what you're like looking at doing, and I know I made a comment earlier about this, but if you don't have the passion, or you don't feel like that goosebump feeling when a mom gives you a hug and says, this is the best thing that's come to Baltimore for my kid or in my lifetime, if that doesn't move you, then it's like KidStrong's not for you.
Yep. There's got to be that right fit, I think, emotionally, like from a purpose perspective, which, again, talking to a ton of people, you guys have one of the coolest, most aligned stories I've ever heard.
But
all right.
It's tough, though. And in about month 3, we learned what she was good at and what I was good at. And we were like, all right, we got to stay in our lanes, because when we started trying to give each other extra tasks, we were like, all right, sit in my seat for a day. And I sat in her seat for a day. And I think after about 20 minutes, we were like, okay, you're really good at what you do. I'm really good at what I do. Let's just not ruffle this. So
was there as you guys, before you made the decision to go sign, and I'm so curious about like the day-to-day roles, that you guys each play, and how that works out. Was there a moment, like an aha, like, all right, we're doing this 100%, like this was the dinner we had, or this is where we were, or was it the negotiation with your former boss? Like, what was that moment where you're like, all right, we're doing this?
No, I actually think it was, and I'll like never forget this exact moment. And it was such a silly moment in the grand scheme of things. But we went to Discovery Day, and I was like, before we went, I was giving every excuse why we couldn't go, like things with family. We have kids. How are we going to go? It was a 24-hour trip to Texas. Like it really wasn't that big of a deal, but I was just every reason why we couldn't go. And we go, and I just like really expected I don't know what I was expecting, but I expected to walk in and there would be like literally a pep rally, cheerleaders, marching band, like the whole thing, like drink this Kool-Aid and like be one of us. And we just walked in, and it was just like, hey guys, like so, hey, how are you? I'm this person, come sit. We're going to talk about, KidStrong and what it is. And we went in and we did the day, we did like a dinner, and we were leaving 24 hours. It was very short. And I looked at him and I was like, I was so underwhelmed in like the best way possible. Like it didn't feel like someone was forcing me into the KidStrong brand. I didn't get I was kind of upset because we got, I think, a pen and a shirt. And I was like, where's like my water bottle, my backpack, like I wanted like the marching band, but I didn't want to feel forced. But so when I left, I said to him, I was like, I was so underwhelmed. It felt like, they didn't ask for anything when we left. They said like, safe flight, we'll talk soon. And it just felt like natural. Like, and we left and we saw centers and we saw families coming in, and it was like, I want to be back there. Like, why do we have to go home after 24 hours to our family and our normal lives? Like, that's where we wanted to be. So for me, that was the point where I was just like, if I don't want to leave here, then I've got to make it happen where we are. So that was kind of my, aha moment,
It
I
wasn't,
think.
I love hearing that too, because I think a lot of people might expect a discovery day to be like full court press, salesy,
Yeah.
like come on, like you said. And I mean, we were similar at Laundrolab where it was everyone's evaluating each other, and this is kind of like a date. Like you want to make sure this is a good
Like second
fit,
Yeah.
date.
and you would
And it
never.
will,
You
yeah.
wouldn't want to go on a date and be like, I have to convince this person why they should like me. It should come naturally, and like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's any different here. That's a really cool story. As you guys got into, all right, so you now have this aha moment. You go to the discovery day. You realize this is it. We really like it. What were you go to sign the franchise agreement. You were officially doing it. What were those first few months after you signed like?
Nerve-wracking.
Yeah, they were scary. They were definitely, I mean, I left my job in
December
December.
23, right before January 24.
And so we were like working on one income. There's like it's like a hurry up and wait thing. So we were like, we found our location and then we were waiting for contractors and then we were waiting on permits. So I felt like we were just constantly in like this, we've got to get this done, but then it's going to take a little bit. We've got to get this done. It's going to take a little bit. And I wasn't working. And we weren't in a pre-sale. We weren't,
We weren't generating, the business was
yeah.
costing money, not generating
Yeah.
money.
So it was definitely scary. And there was a lot of times I was like, was this right? Like, are we doing the right thing? And he was constantly like, there's no backing out now. Here we are. Let's just go for
There
it.
was a lot of text from upstairs to downstairs where I'm like
Mhm.
watching TV and she's like, "Are you sure we can do this?" And I was like,
It was too late at that point anyway.
"Yeah." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "We're both, we're both going
We're
in all
all
in."
in.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, "There's no way in hell I'm letting this fail." Not me, but I was like, there's no way we're gonna let this fail." And that's a piece of advice I'd give everybody who's looking into and teetering on that line of, do I take the risk? Do I not take the risk? If not now, you won't, but someone else will. So it's like, and again, if you have that passion and you're thinking about doing it and it's viable for you financially, jump in. Because like, if it doesn't work after 2 years, 5 years, close up shop, like whatever, like life goes on, you know? But take the risk, for sure.
And how do you think that you guys eventually like, kind of handled that stress, right? Of like, hey, we're not going to let it fail, but eventually, you could let it eat at you if you wanted to. How did you eventually turn that off, or like at least dampen that voice in your head a little bit to the point where you could focus and like really go after it?
I think the nice thing was like, it was a hurry up and wait for a few months. And so we did have to, kind of wait for things to get going, but once things got going, they were moving. And so we really like consumed ourselves with making sure that we were getting our name out there. We were advertising in places, we were dressing our kids up in all of the merch and going to playgrounds. Like we found a lot of places where we knew KidStrong would thrive, playgrounds and all kids events. And so we would just go out there and if not for anything, just to like for someone to see KidStrong on our shirts, or see our kids with a shirt that says I am strong and kind of question what that was. um we just started like getting our names out there in that way, and it made it, it kept us busy. But then once we started, signs were up and we were doing pre-sale, it was like we didn't sleep. So
Yeah, yeah.
that little like lull of stress was actually nice for us to gear up for what came after.
Yeah, the pre-sale, people are like, "What'd you do last summer?" I'm like, "Nothing."
Called people.
Yeah, we were on the phones, email, and texting from 8 to 8 every morning. I don't think
That's
it was
awesome.
until I think it was until we hit about 300 or 350 members, we took the like we let the gas off a little bit, and we're like, "All right, let's not like go this hard anymore." Um, but again, it was excitement, and like with that exchange, text messages, like we weren't gonna let it fail. So I mean, we grinded all summer, and now we have friends who are probably like, "Oh, they go into work when they want, blah blah blah." And it's like, you weren't there at that dinner table when we were grinding from 8 to 8 every day, shelling out, a lot of money every week for babysitters, and it's just yeah, I mean, you
The
put the work into it, you'll do well. You gotta have that focus and drive too.
It's funny when
Um
you were saying your friends seeing you guys now, like, oh, they get to work kind of whenever they want. And I tell my friends, it's like, yeah, it was the 3 year overnight success or the eight
yeah,
year overnight success.
exactly. And people are like, how can you go play golf on a Tuesday? Like, because KidStrong's not open till 3:30 p.m. So like have a morning. Um, but it's
I mean, don't get us wrong, we're still grinding right now. We're barely a year old. We are still in
by no
the
means are we a like Uber success story or anything like that. But I mean, I think we should celebrate like what we've been able to accomplish in 8 months. I'm very happy. I and it's just a testament to a good partnership, a good brand, and good work ethic.
Yeah. Now that you're 8 months in, what does your day to day look like? You guys were talking about how you kind of split responsibilities and you guys try to stay in your own lane as much as you can, but what does that lane look like for each of you?
Yeah, I mean, we're married. So, and we have two kids. And so it's like, that is also another dynamic makes it a little tricky because we have two young kids that we want that's, what we did this for the freedom to be with them too. Which, we're just kind of getting to that point. So that's a huge dynamic in and of itself. Our ultimate goal was always to have this like dream incredible staff of all these people that just want to work so hard and be like us, and that's hard to find. So we are still like looking for our head leaders and things like that. So it's not like we're absent all the time. We are fully invested in the center that we have right now, until we find the people that we really trust to like fully release our responsibilities to. But I've never, like I said earlier, I've never been into money, and finances and anything like that. Admin, like, count me out. So I do most of the like in center. I do a lot of work with our coaches, trainings and things like that, making sure that they all have the scheduling
Motionless.
together. And then Jeff takes over on more of like the admin.
Yeah, and all us former sales guys are just
Yeah.
great with deadlines and admin. That has by far been my biggest adjustment because like I used to have somebody to kick it off to. You're like, hey, I made this sale, like, send A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now I'm like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So I'm like, that's been my biggest adjustment. But no, Samantha hit it on the head. She's more in center day to day scheduling, hiring, that kind of stuff. And then I'm all financials, uh, uh, investors, GCs, looking at next locations, looking into acquiring, different locations in different states, just big picture stuff, partnerships, vendor relations, um, insurance, just like anything that HVAC, cleaning
Count
companies.
me out.
The what?
It,
I said, count me out. That's
it
Yeah.
is,
So like
it's
payroll.
amazing. It is amazing what you get exposed to. I mean, like how many different things you don't think about.
Oh,
Like you said,
100%.
HVAC popping up, or I have to do this now. I mean, and the funny thing is when I look back at, like, I was in laundromats until like 4 a.m. when we were getting started, like trying to process clothes, for the previous business that we built. And I remember thinking back on it, like I would have, younger me would have never seen future me like doing laundry at 3 in the
yeah.
morning. But it's not didn't feel like work. It was like this is
Yeah.
my thing to figure out, and I love it. It's exciting. Have you guys
I
felt
think the
that way?
thing,
So we also have
yeah.
parties. So like younger me would never see 38-year-old Jeff. Hey, what kind of cupcakes and pizza do you want for your? But it's like it's our business. So like I never would envision that, but it's kind of hilarious. But it's
No, and I think the things like like you were saying, you don't imagine like when we first got our lease for this place and they sent it over, um, and I called him and I was like, all right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and sign it. He's like, oh no, no, we have to send this to an attorney and it has to be read over. And I'm like, oh my God, the only lease I've ever signed in my life was from like a college apartment, and you just accepted it for what it was. So, not even just learning the brand, but learning like how to business is so hard. that he is, that's why I like just pass it off, because we would have signed on, whatever it said first.
Yeah.
And our, landlord would have loved us because I would have signed it. Because I don't know better and you don't know
Yeah.
better. So it's not just like, does the franchise fit, but like, does the person you're working with, can they figure out the stuff you can't? Because that was, I think, honestly, the lease was the point where I was like, okay, you're going to take care of all of the stuff that like could be really important to the rest of our lives. And I'll just take care of the day-to-day stuff that I know I can carry us through. And, that's where the divide happened.
And to piggyback on that, I think that for people in franchising, looking into franchising, deal one to deal two for like your landlord, game changer. Or the game changer opportunity. And that's what we were able to do, but I mean I did it, but she gets half the credit. Um but I've taken so long, and I had competitor uh places that we were interested in, and then we had like little bidding war because of how well Timonium's done, that we got a lot of extra TA allowance, and a much better rent negotiated price for the duration of the lease that we're about to sign, because I knew I did my homework, and just talking to other business owners and other KidStrong owners, and our broker was like, how did you do this? Like, how did you come up with this stuff? And I said, I didn't ask. I said I didn't push back at all for lease one, and I said I'm pushing back on everything for lease two. So I think if you can find a happy medium between those tactics, I think you'll do very well. But this latest deal, I've pushed back on like everything, but again, it's from things I should have done for lease one. So
Well,
uh,
someone told me once the thing that makes like a great entrepreneur or business owner is the ability to know what you don't know, and then surround yourself with people who know that thing or ask
yeah,
experts. And so, like Samantha with the lease, being like, "Hey, look, I know this is my area that I don't have a ton of information on. Like, Jeff, can you jump in?" And then Jeff, you're learning as you're going and part of these things, and it's like you just get better and better. But that ability to say, I actually don't know the best way to do this, but I know six people who do, and I'm going to go surround myself with them. And that's what I think is great about franchising is you do have
Yeah.
a peer group and a brand behind you helping speed that, I think that learning up and that ability to ask those types of questions.
Yeah. I think the support was like, that was, what was the easiest reason of why we decided to franchise, because it was like we don't know, and we don't know what's next, and we don't know what comes first, and we don't know how to approach anything. So just knowing like there was someone, in the world of HQ that we could just be like, hey, we have no idea what we're doing. And they just gave us, enough. I think it was a shock. We had like our hands held up until we opened, and then they were like, "Okay, you've got this, go fly." And we were like, "Hold on, wait." But in the long run, they actually, you know, it was like, I mean, they know what they're doing. They knew when to let go. They knew when to let us figure it out. We struggled the first month, like getting, our own feet on the ground, but
I'd say 2 months we struggled.
yeah.
I mean,
But it was like, I just, I don't think that we would be where we are without the support of a franchise. And I think that that's kind of where, like, oh, I could have done this by myself. I could have wrote the programming. I have all this knowledge. Like, I have my master's in elementary education. I'm very familiar with kids, but like, did I want to do it on my own? No, I wanted it to know that it was supported and knew that I had we had what we needed when we needed it.
and we have people at HQ that like I text or she'll text and about football and sports, and then obviously KidStrong is going to come up at some point. And one of the guys at KidStrong really kind of helped me paint my picture. And I was in Dallas 6 weeks ago for a personal visit, and I stopped by KidStrong HQ and I was just like, I want to go say hi to everybody, and they were like, yeah, we actually like you. We want you to come in and say hi to us. And I went out to lunch with one of the guys, and I told him about the deal that I had with Bel Air, and he's like, how did you do this? And I said, I just kept asking for stuff. And he goes, man, I don't know how it works up there in the Northeast because it's not like that in Texas. So I was like, I guess I'm doing something right. So
It is good to have that peer network again and someone to go to, and something, Samantha, that you said about like if it felt really easy, or a part of it felt easy. I mean, to me, that is the franchise system working. Like when someone's like, "Oh, this was so easy, I could have done it myself." It's like the effort that went into making those parts
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
easy is so overlooked, and probably,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
overlooked.
like you don't have to
And
think about designing a logo, finding a designer,
Right.
finding you're building all the the equipment and the training manuals and stuff. You get to modify them and change them, I'm sure. But there's so many of these things that I think happen that people don't stop and think and realize like this would have taken me another year, if not
Yeah.
more, plus a lot of mistakes, along the way to figure this
And,
out.
and with financing, when you have like a franchise, you have a concept that's proven and it's at market, people are gonna, invest in you because there's proof in the pudding. You know what I mean? It's not just like, your own individual concept, and that's I think harder to get off the ground, finance funded. So I think, franchising is easier in that aspect. Like you can get your business up and running quicker.
Hmm.
Um, and then now that yeah, I like you said earlier, I learn as we go, and I'm like, hey, franchising is its own little like its own world, and it's a big world, and it's cool to connect and meet people and find out what their 5 year, 10 year, 15 year strategy is, and maybe just some people just want to own one or two locations. We're interested in potentially having 8 to 12 at some point. So, and not just in Maryland, other states. So it's cool. It's like your own little network world with KidStrong and franchising. And I like that part because I was a business guy and now I'm the fist bump guy. So it's nice to still feel connected.
That's awesome. Is there any one thing, along the way that you guys, felt like things really started to click, that unlocked growth, that like really got you in the rhythm? Is there any one thing, or is it a combination of things?
I think for me, I'm competitive by nature. Like I've always strived to be like really good at what I do. And I think that, there were a lot of times like when leaderboards were released for sales and for this and for that. And I was like, oh my God, why are we not up there? And it was like, this like conversation that Jeff and I had. And then, just like, you know, in general, like a realization with me, it was like, one, we need to stay in our own lane. Like our kid strong is our kid strong. And that's, we're competing against ourselves to get better each month. But then it was also like all of the people that own the kid strongs in the nation and, all over, like they're on our team. And like, I'm not going to ever open a kid strong next to someone else's kid strong and hope mine's more successful. It's like, I need to lean into what we have as a community because we're not a standalone. We are a franchise. Like there's 150 some kid strongs right now. Like, why am I competing against them when we should be like working to grow the brand? It's not that big. And so, we lean into, we have friends out in Washington and, the middle of Midwest and
Utah,
Florida. And
Nevada,
so it's like,
Oregon, yeah.
we'll message them and be like, okay, what was your month like? And what are your next plans? And so it's just leaning into like, being competitive with the brand and growing the brand as a whole and not just like a standalone. And that's when it starts to click for me. Like I'm just, stay in my lane, but also like help grow Kid Strong because that's going to make us all a little bit more successful. And I think since we've started changing our focus on that, or at least me, like I've, put a lot more effort into what I'm doing month to month here instead of what's going on, for everyone and who I'm competing against in Kid Strong in general.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, we did have to check ourselves to be like, hey, we're not like every kid strong that does well is good for everybody. So we're rooting for everybody. But I would say mine was like I think day 71. It was like it definitely was an odd number. I walked in and everything was like kind of like calm, and I'm like, I think we got this down pretty good.
It's
And then ever
working.
yeah, and now it's like people will be like, I come in and they'll be, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. And I'm like, yeah, that's we're working on getting me out and eventually her, but and then keep building the playbook and keep expanding. So
So I guess coming down the home stretch, I guess advice for folks that are either looking for their first business, whether it's franchise or not, or maybe even it's their 10th one that they're doing. Is there anything that you guys think people get totally wrong about franchising? As a whole, as a business model, as a universe, is there something that people, make a wrong assumption about?
I think so. I think there's a few things. Do you have one off the top of your head?
No, go. Oh.
I think, like I said at the beginning, it's not like rah rah, no one is trying to court you. Um, it's very, at least, our experience was very low key. It felt very natural. I think that that's kind of a huge part of, what made us realize it was meant for us was that it was so natural. And I think things that don't feel natural, like could be a red flag. But like, I think that another, a big thing is like, could you see yourself there every day? I could never see myself in like a fast food restaurant every single day. Like that's just not who I am. I could not see myself sitting at a desk every day. That's not who I am. So like those would be major red flags for me. But if my entire staff called out tomorrow, like I could see myself being here from open to close, going through all the motions, being all the positions, doing all the work because I love this brand and I love what we do. And so I think, like starting a business in general is like, could you do it day in and day out? We probably worked for 90 days straight, no days off. Like we're open 7 days a week. So it wasn't like, oh, we're closed on Sunday. No, we were here for 90 days straight, making sure that it was what we wanted it to be. And I don't know that there are many businesses that I could say I would want to be it for 90 days straight. Except for this one. And I like, looking back, it was a blip in time and now we're moving forward from that. But I think if you can't say you would wake up every day and show up your best self, delivering your best business, then it's probably not a good move.
So my piece of advice would don't be open 7 days a week. Give yourself 1 day off. Let the business be closed for 1 day if your retail shop allows it, or if your franchise agreement allows it. I would say close 1 day. But the other thing I would say to Samantha's point is we've been here since day one and we've done everything from coaching, cleaning bathrooms, mopping floors, taking out trash, answering phone calls, having, hard conversation with members. So we've done everything that we would never ask any of our employees to do. And I just think that goes back to if you're going to invest in something, you need to put some of your sweat equity into it. I know a lot of people just, go in for the investor and they just write the check. In my mind, that's kind of more risky because then you don't know what kind of, work you're actually getting out of the person you're putting in charge. So, I think it's cool as an investor to take pride in what you're investing in too. And getting your hands dirty and rolling up your sleeves and being part of the team. So, that would be my advice. Take a day off and get your hands dirty in the center, meet your families, meet your kids, meet whatever product that you're going to be, working with, take pride in whatever you invest in.
We've actually done Undercover Boss without the TV show. So done it all, seen it all.
That's awesome. Whose idea was that?
But no, I'm just saying we've done all the activities that there are.
I thought you guys like actually went into some studios.
You kind of sold it like that, so I was just playing. I was going to
And then last question, what's some advice you have for people looking right now? Like they're in the searching phase. They haven't opened yet, but they're just trying to figure out like if this for me. Is there podcasts you'd recommend listening to, tools, resources?
Yeah, that's a good thing. And I get hit up a lot on this is when you're looking into a franchise, ask the company or the HQ, can I talk peer to peer? And I would say talk to multiple people in your own vicinity, like the Mid-Atlantic, and then talk to somebody from Texas or Florida, and then talk to somebody in, rural, somewhere rural, like, and just find out what their thoughts of the brand, how they're doing successfully, because the nice thing about KidStrong is they let us talk to everybody. And there was one couple they didn't want us really to talk to, and they kind of like let us know, but they're like, hey, this is your guys' thing, so do it. And it was a call that went like blah. But I think that's like the biggest thing is being able to talk to a peer to peer. And I'm very transparent. I've told people like, hey, this is how we're doing member wise. This is how we're doing ballpark revenue wise. And if find somebody who's pretty transparent and passionate about the brand, I think they're going to be more forthcoming with you. And I think that's your best advice and advocate is to find people, who believe in the brand and who will share advice with you. Because that did help us out tremendously. And it was nice to hear that the one couple who like had nothing but not great things to say when we talked to 10 other people who had nothing but great things to say. So,
Yeah.
so peer to peer is my best recommendation.
Yeah, and I think that when you're exploring like options, this one kind of just like, we've said was a perfect match for us. But, when we started learning about it more, we also learned that it was a newer to market franchise, that it was, up and coming, that it wasn't established. So for us that, there were benefits monetary wise that, we weren't paying for a well-established franchise. But it also meant we were in the growth phase. And so there have been a lot of changes since we started 2 years ago, and there's, more coming. So I think just knowing what you're getting into, like you might not be getting the most established franchise, but it might be a huge opportunity for you to grow with them. If you want something very turnkey and something that's already got all of the kinks worked out, then like knowing, where they are is huge, I think, because we went in brand new to franchising, had no idea, any of this or like what up and coming, what new to market, what all of this meant. But, we're learning as we go. And it's kind of nice that we're seeing how everything plays out and how they're growing and understanding, the changes that are being made. But if you don't want to put in that type of work and you don't want to be a part of something like that, then obviously a more well-established franchise is probably a better fit.
Yep, those are two really good pieces of advice. It's like have the right expectations, figure out what your expectations even are, and then see if that brand can meet those or not. And then two, I love the peer review, talking to other franchisees. And it's the same advice I would give people who are looking for a job too. It's like or that you're interviewing for a job. They give you the two or three references that are going to say all the great
Yeah.
things. Like
Yeah.
go find two or three references that they
Yeah.
didn't list. And the same is true for franchising. The brand is going
Yeah.
to give you two or three most likely. Go find the other two or three on LinkedIn or in the FDD and
Yeah.
do some of that kind of secret shopping again, if you will, because it is good to get data points from a number of different places.
That's funny, Alex, because like I had two guys that just signed on to KidStrong, and they found me on the FTD, and they were like, "Hey, like, don't tell corporate we're." I know this get edit, so like, probably don't use this part, but I mean, I don't think they signed, so like, it's not a big deal. But I was very transparent with them, and they sent me a text a couple of days ago, and they were like, "Hey, we signed on for like 3 locations. Like, thank you so much for your support and your advice." And I was like, "Sure." Like, I mean, and again, that goes to the peer to peer thing. Like, I'm always going to keep it real with people.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think like adding off that, another thing is like be prepared for those hard conversations
Yeah.
because the conversation we had with someone definitely stopped us in our tracks and made us like slow down for a second and
Yeah.
really consider everything. And like, of course, everyone's gonna have one bad moment, one piece of time that wasn't good, that they had a disagreement with their headquarters, their franchisors, whatever it is. But like, be prepared that those are going to happen, and there's going to be some bad moments, especially with the people you're talking to, and just like take them as a learning moment because they happen. And we've had a few that we had to be like, hold on, like, are we ready? Can we handle this if it comes our way? We were told that we would never be able to be a both full time for one center. We would never be able to make that work. And here we are. So, someone's bad experience might not be your situation, but understanding that it could be and it could not be, and being prepared for both of them.
That's a really good point. I think, if it were easy, everyone would be doing it. And so you're going to
Bingo.
naturally hear stories where this was really hard and we gave up, and people's pain tolerance and willingness to work hard is also very
Right.
different from one another. And so what doesn't work for someone else might work incredibly well for you guys because you have the right mentality, the right fit, the right market. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. if every call you did, everyone just said, "Oh, this is great and perfect," and
Yeah.
I would,
Yeah, it's like, what
That's
world are
scary.
you in?
that would freak me out. That would freak me out if everyone was like all jolly and nothing goes wrong ever. I'd be like, something
Yeah.
weird is
That's
going on
the pep rally
behind the
There,
scenes.
there's
Yeah.
it's like this Instagram, like little video or something, and there's a quote, and I'm butchering it, but the premise is right before you like I think it's like 99% of people quit when it gets really tough, like right here, and it's like that 1% who stick it out to here, they like become so uber successful. So like we've had those moments to where we've been like, crap, like this is not fun, and then you just grind it out, and then like the next week, like you just like, wow, our whole world just like turned upside down in the positive way. So like I don't know, Google it or something. It's a cool quote though. It shows you like this little graph, and it's like 99% of people get right here, and they're just like, all right, I throw in the towel, and it's like if you would have just stayed right
One
there.
more percent.
Yeah,
It's
and
something
I think
like
it relates to stock markets too. Like every time there's been a crash and everybody pulls out, it's like if you would have had kept those funds for like those 25 days in a 30-year period, it's like you would have made millions. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. So
you're always like right
use
there.
this.
You're
This is
always
just
right.
me and you. Don't use this feed. This is me and you. So like, you're like, man, this guy's like,
No, this is all. I keep telling myself whenever I'm up in your neck of the woods, I'm gonna look you guys up and we're gonna get together. You guys seem like an awesome time and a
dude,
good group of people.
you ever saw?
See ya.
Yeah, have yourself buy
Like
a beer.
like I said at the beginning, I
Grab
can't
it.
let you guys go without doing the mantra. I need you guys
Oh,
to
yeah.
give me a refresher though. I want to do it with you guys. So is it, I'm
right, so-
strong.
Yeah, you start with your muscles up,
All right.
and then you say, I am strong.
I'm strong.
I am brave.
I am brave.
I am brave.
I can do this.
I can do this. Awesome. Love it. Thank you guys for coming on. I mean, this was awesome. Again, our goal is to help other people navigate their journey just like you guys are and you have been, and hearing it real, like raw from the source of people that are actually going through it. So appreciate you taking the time to share your journey, what you've learned, the hard parts, the good parts, and very grateful for again, the last hour you've spent with us.
Huh,
Yeah,
you're very
for sure.
welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, come visit us and get a crab cake and a beer.
Let's do it. I'll hold you